Yeah, terrific, thank you. I'm going to tell you something about a new experimental method to treat moderate depression, which is based on mental space psychology, and some people perhaps have listened to Lucas's presentation yesterday, so they know a bit what it's all about. I will briefly explain it in a few slides, but not go as deep into the material as in the theory as Lucas has done. But I'll first introduce myself briefly. I am a therapist, a counselor in the Netherlands, and I have a practice for about more than 12 years now to treat people with anxiety, with depression, with stress-related problems, with relationship problems, all kinds of things, mourning. And in the last couple of years, I have studied the depression more intensively. The reason I did that was I had to write my thesis, when I studied, for my study, psychology on a bachelor level. And Lucas has just written his book. He was writing his book on mental space psychology with this new methodology in it. So I thought, well, what would be nicer than if I could do the same and try to see if the methodology, depression in awareness space, works. So that's what I did, and I will tell you about that project later on in my presentation. First of all, I would like to start just telling you a bit. Most of you perhaps know that, but who has any family or relatives, or has perhaps experienced depression him or herself lately? There are a lot of hands coming up. Okay, interesting. And who are people who are coaching or counseling people with depression, or helping people with depression? Also, a number of you are doing that. Okay. Well, perhaps you will find some recognizable things in this presentation. If you have questions, please just do not hesitate to ask me if you have questions in between. So don't wait till the end, just interrupt me. I'll feel completely comfortable with that, so it's okay. What we are going to do is, first of all, I would like to tell you a bit more about depression according to the DSM-5. Tell you about the social impact it has in lives. A small and a brief explanation about mental space and depression. And then give you the model which I used in my own research project, Depression in Awareness Space. You will then see a demonstration, if everything goes well with the technique. When Lucas is treating a client, I was wondering if I would do a demonstration myself here, but I thought the risk would be a bit too high. I have just 90 minutes and I just want to have a positive outcome. So that's why I chose to show the film. It's 20 minutes approximately, so you can see all the steps, you can follow all the steps with a handout later on. And then afterwards I will tell you some results which I had in my pilot research project, and what we are doing now in the follow-up of that project with the methodology, and that is still ongoing. So if there are questions in between, please do so, and then the results so far. So I hope I can get through this in 90 minutes. I'll do my best. Well, certainly the people who are now have experienced feelings of depression shall see that these are the things that are in the DSM, the Bible of the psychiatrists, as I call it, where the symptoms are described of what is a depression, what a depression really is. Well, normally when people feel depressed, they're not just having an off day, but they are being depressed and feeling depressed during a longer time, and have a feeling of chronically unhappiness, something that is inside them that they feel very unhappy about. They cannot enjoy anything, they have lack of energy, a decreased appetite, often suffer from insomnia. And people who have the experiences will recognize this, I think. Well, this is not a state of being in which you say, well, let's enjoy life. So you would like to get rid of that depression. Oh, I must go. Yeah. What you see is that at this moment, and now it's Mental Health Week here in Great Britain, which I think was a very beautiful initiative, and that is because lots of people suffer from all sorts of mental diseases, and I think depression is a very one that has a great impact in your life, not only for yourself but also for the people who are around you, and also for people who you are working with. And severe depression is 8% is quite a lot. When you see in Europe and in European countries all over the world, in Europe itself, 8% of the European people suffer from depression, and it has a great contribution to mental health problems. So when you are not feeling well and you're feeling depressed, well, they have as consequence that you have long-term sick leaves and disabilities in life. And that is something which is having a great impact in the social world as well. It also gives a big contribution to other diseases like, and you have, when you know body and mind are connected, we are a holistic person, so then the blood pressure goes up, or it goes, some people can get a stroke, some people get heart problems, and it even can affect people in such a way that they can develop diseases as cancer. As we heard this morning when we had a lovely lecture about how to treat people with cancer. Cancer can be an outcome of depression because there has a lot of influence on your immunity as well. So the normal treatment we get when we go to the doctor, say, hello, I don't feel very well, I'm feeling a bit depressed, or I feel a longer time I feel depressed. They say, okay, well, I'll send you to the psychologist, and he will give you talking therapies, or you go to the psychiatrist and you get a prescription for pills. That's what we normally do when people feel depressed. Well, in some cases that can be a solution, of course. And certainly if there are people who are suffering from depression for more than 10 years or something, that perhaps there is something wrong with their hormones, perhaps there is something wrong with their serotonins. That's what people think that is the case. But often there is something completely different which we can do as we are NLPers, as we are coaches, instead of just talking with our clients saying, oh, well, I can understand you are feeling very depressed. Oh, yeah, that's because that has happened in your life. Yeah, I can feel that. But it doesn't bring a solution at all. And that is what we want to achieve when we are treating our clients with depression. So that's why we're going to do it in a quite different way. Now I have to switch to something here, I think, and my film is going to move. I want to see if it works. So here. Yes. And here.
I had a black dog. His name is Depression. Whenever the black dog made an appearance, I felt empty and life just seemed to slow down. He could surprise me with a visit for no reason or occasion. The black dog made me look and feel older than my years. When the rest of the world seemed to be enjoying life, I could only see it through the black dog. Activities that usually brought me pleasure suddenly ceased to. He liked to ruin my appetite. He chewed up my memory and my ability to concentrate. Doing anything or going anywhere with the black dog required superhuman strength. At social occasions, he'd sniff out what confidence I had and chase it away. My biggest fear was being found out. I worried that people would judge me because of the shame and stigma of with the black dog, I was constantly worried that I'd be found out. So I invested vast amounts of energy into covering him up. Keeping up an emotional lie is exhausting. Black dog could make me think and say negative things. He could make me irritable and difficult to be around. He would take my love and bury my intimacy. He loved nothing more than to wake me up with highly repetitive and negative thinking. He also liked to remind me how exhausted I was going to be the next day. Having a black dog in your life isn't so much about feeling a bit down, sad or blue. At its worst, it's about being devoid of feeling altogether. As I got older, the black dog got bigger and he started hanging around all the time. I chased him off with whatever I thought might send him running. But more often than not, he'd come out on top. Going down became easier than getting up again. So I became rather good at self-medication, which never really helped. Eventually, I felt totally isolated from everything and everyone. The black dog had finally succeeded in hijacking my life. When you lose all joy in life, you can begin to question what the point of it is. Thankfully, this was the time that I sought professional help. This was my first step towards recovery and a major turning point in my life. I learned that it doesn't matter who you are, the black dog affects millions and millions of people. It is an equal opportunity mongrel. I also learned that there was no silver bullet or magic pill. Medication can help some, and others might need a different approach altogether. I also learned that being emotionally genuine and authentic to those who are close to you can be an absolute game changer. Most importantly, I learned not to be afraid of the black dog, and I taught him a few new tricks of my own. The more tired and stressed you are, the louder he barks. So it's important to learn how to quiet your mind. It's been clinically proven that regular exercise can be as effective for treating mild to moderate depression as antidepressants. So go for a walk or a run and leave them up behind. Keep a mood journal. Getting your thoughts on paper can be cathartic and often insightful. Also keep track of the things that you have to be grateful for. The most important thing to remember is that no matter how bad it gets, if you take the right steps, talk to the right people, black dog days can and will pass. I wouldn't say that I'm grateful for the black dog, but he's been an incredible teacher. He forced me to reevaluate and simplify my life. I learned that rather than running away from my problems, it's better to embrace them. The black dog may always be part of my life, but he'll never be the beast that he was. We have an understanding. I've learned through knowledge, patience, discipline and humour, the worst black dog can be made to heal. If you're in difficulty, never be afraid to ask for help. There is absolutely no shame in doing so. The only shame is missing out on life.
So this is a fantastic movie, I think, from Matthew Johnstone. Has anybody seen this before? Yeah. And what do you see is that he uses a metaphor. The metaphor of the black dog as a depression. And what we are going to work with in this methodology is that we also are using something likewise. Not necessarily a black dog, but perhaps something different. I would like you to do something for me first. Just close your eyes. Feel comfortable on the chair where you're sitting on. And when it's okay, just imagine you are standing in the front of your front door, of your own house. And in your imagination, you open the door and you get in. And you walk through. Perhaps you have a hallway. Perhaps you come straight into the living room. Perhaps you have to open another door. And then you go to your couch or your sofa in the living room. And you get to sit down there. And when you're sitting on the couch, you look at everything that surrounds you. What is in the room? What you can see. What spatially attracts your attention at this moment. And when you have a clear view of that, you may open your eyes again. And was this easy for you to do or difficult? Easy. Easy. And how did you look at your house? How did you experience that?
Through my eyes.
Through your eyes. You saw it through your eyes. And did you see it like it was a flat picture, or did you really walk through the house in a three-dimensional feeling? 3D. 3D. So you see, and that's the theory what Lucas also embraces, we think three-dimensional. Our brain functions three-dimensional. And that is what we are going to work with in this methodology as well, because that helps a lot to visualize things. We can experience it that way. The new paradigm which we embrace is that space is the primary organizing principle in the mind. That's what we learned yesterday. Luke gave a lecture about that. In a few steps, all manner of thought is located somewhere in the space in and around a person. So as you have now experienced when you walk through your house, you have imagined that. What we think is three-dimensional. And there is also a theory about repression and dissociation, what Jerome Singer has developed, that people can see that something they do not want to feel anymore, that they repress that you cannot see it anymore. And what we would like to do, and when you are depressed, sometimes you don't know why. And you need to find out what the cause is, why you feel depressed. And sometimes it can be something that you have repressed. I will come back to that a few slides further on. These are drawings that Lucas made just to visualize how you can see that the thoughts are mentalized in three-dimensionally, as you have just experienced now by walking through your house and sitting on your couch in the living room. And the left one is quite a nice picture. The right one is when it's not so nice, and you can see what you can feel inside. That's in the drawing now, the black area. And what we have done is develop this experimental method to treat mild or moderate depression based on spatial cognition and NLP. And it is a practice-based method. It is just, we're going to see if it works. That's what we do in NLP. We're just going to find something out and see if it works. And now, in my thesis, I've done a test, and we want to prove it now. We want to prove if it is indeed a method which we can use in our daily base practice as a coach or a counselor. So we are trying to find scientific evidence for this methodology, because I think it's very important. If we have a new tool to treat people with depression, which is different from just talking therapies and pills, then we have something very special that can help people a lot to get out of that feeling of depression, which is what we would like to do, of course. So there are a number of people here in the room who have experience with depression. If I ask you, Well, how would you describe your feeling of depression? In which term would you like the movie, the little film, it was about a black dog, what would you use as a metaphor? Someone? Excuse me? Cloudy sky. Very good. Heavy?
A cage.
A cage. Okay. And is this cloudy sky a bright sky or is it a dark sky?
Can be both.
Both. And when you're feeling depressed, what color does it have? Any idea? Would it be a bright sunny day or would it be a rather gloomy, gloomy, dark day when you're feeling depressed? More gloomy, I think, yeah. Yeah, most people speak of their depression in that way. So that it's a gloomy feeling, clouds of darkness, which is heavy, something that's heavy. I had some clients in my practice who were having heavy stones in their body, or dark clouds hanging around them, or a black box. There was someone who had a black box, who was sitting in it, actually, in a black box. And this dark matter, this is what we call the dark matter, this dark sort of metaphor is a symptom of a feeling that you have that lies behind the dark zone. The depression is the symptom of something that you could not do, of that you have lost in life, or that you feel hopeless about, of something that you have given up. And some people know, so then it's okay. But a lot of people do not. They just say, oh, I'm not feeling very well, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling sad, I feel as if the cloud is around me, and I don't know why. And that's what we want to find out. Because if we know what's causing that depression, we can do something about it. Because we are all coaches and we're counselors, so we can help people with that. So this is the experimental method. It's called mental space. We have renamed it. Unfortunately, we'd call it the depression in awareness space. That was the original name. Now we have to call it mental space and depression, MSPD, and that was of all kinds of reasons. But it was something to do with a company in the Netherlands who claimed the name DAS. So we weren't allowed to use it anymore. That was a bit silly, but okay, that's what it was. But it is a method to treat the irrational capabilities of the person. And I think in this example, which we just saw of Matthew Johnstone, I had a black dog, his name was depression. It's a sort of form of something that is accompanying you all the time, that is with you all the time. And to retrieve the issue to what is lying behind the black dog, we have to do something, because otherwise we're just taking that black dog all around. And that's not what we want. So, what we think is, and that's saying that these are the assumptions we made, depression is not just an episode of symptoms, disbalance in hormones or serotonins or whatever, is what we hear from our doctors. But we need to believe, as a therapist, that there is a problem issue that lies behind that feeling of depression, and we have to find the missing resources or the lacking capabilities, or find other coping strategies to deal with that. And most therapists are trained to find a cognitive and rational solution to a problem, but problems can be so big that a normal person can't solve it. So sometimes we have to do something extra to find a person who perhaps does not exist, or another role model, which could be an angel, or a monk, or a god even, or another spirit, something like that, to help people find the capabilities that are necessary to solve the problem they are dealing with. Because it is too big to handle for a normal human being. So, what it's all about is, and I'll just walk through a few steps now first, then I'll show you the film, the demonstration Lucas did with a client, and by doing so, I'll give it at the same time. You will have a handout so you can see follow the steps where we are somewhere in the demo. It is quite clear, but still it can help you, perhaps. So, first of all, what you ask the client is, okay, when you feel depressed, where in your body do you have the feeling of depression? Associate with that feeling. Where do you find it in your body? And then after that you ask the client, okay, and when you have that feeling of depression and you feel that here, somewhere in your body, where in the space, localized in space, is that feeling of depression localized? Where can you see that? And people always say, okay, I can see a dark cloud. You had a cloud, that was a nice example, or a heavy stone, and it lies before. You can visualize that before you. And it looks like this. This is a person who has a black cloud hanging above him. The black cloud of depression. And when I ask the question, where is that dark zone of depression around you? People just point out, okay, it's there. I associate with the feeling, and where's the feeling? The feeling is there, or there, or there. Somewhere in the space around the client. Here's another one. It was like that. And what we do is then we ask the client, okay, when you have found that zone, just try to put it in the center of your attention, about 50 centimeters in front of your nose, so you can have a good look at it. Okay, and then normally the client can do that. And you ask the client then to let the sun come up behind him and shine upon that dark zone. And just see what happens. And sometimes it can be rather quickly, sometimes people need a few minutes to do that, and you stimulate the client to do that. Just shine light upon it and see what happens. And then the dark area becomes smaller or lighter, moves farther away, more transparent. That's different from people. Some people have a lighter, or it comes higher, or it moves farther away. But what we need to have is that the person can see, the client can see what is lying behind that. When it's black and vast and in front of you, you cannot see anything because it blocks your sight. But if it is transparent, or it has holes in it, or it is more lighter, or it has moved farther away, perhaps the client can see, okay, I can see what lies behind it. And then you ask that. What is the problem hiding behind the dark zone? And often, that's the question we ask them. What you have lost in life, something you couldn't do, something you would love to have done but weren't capable of. And that's the repressed issue you are looking for. And that's the access you get to that. So this is in a visual, so you see the sun is shining and the dark zone diminishes, gets a bit smaller. And then you can see, there's a repressed issue somewhere there, and I can have a look at it. So that's what the client needs to find. Relax, try to open your mind for the issue that lies behind the dark zone. What was it that you couldn't do, what you couldn't handle, what you've lost, or what you gave up? Something you couldn't cope with in life. And the second question is, what would have been helpful for you to cope with this problem? And sometimes these coping strategies can be very difficult for the client, because that's why sometimes you need an angel or a spirit or something like that, because it is for some people too complicated to just think that they could do it themselves, but perhaps someone else can. And if they have found that capability, okay, then what happens? Then we go to old school NLP. And everyone knows the new behavior generator, I suppose. Well, it's just a new behavior generator of a role model. Do you know someone? But it doesn't have to be a real existing person. So it can be someone else, and it can be a spirit or something like that, or a monk or whatever. And then you just go into that and imagine that person or the spirit is coping with it. And when it's okay, you change the image of the role model. For you NLPers, it's all old school. I suppose people know what you do then. And then after that, if you have taken in that enough, then you associate yourself with the capability learned from the role model. And then if you feel capable of doing this, then you transfer this capability to your younger self, grow up with it, and see what happens when you've done that. Well, this seems to be very easy. The problem is, from my experience, is when sometimes in the first phase of this, when I just go back on this one, sometimes you have to help the client. Because a client comes to you and you're doing something completely different from what he's expecting. He's not expecting you to ask these questions. He's expecting you to talk about the issue of depression, how you feel and how heavy it is and how dark you feel. He's not expecting to find a solution for what's hiding and finding the issue that's hiding behind the dark cloud. So sometimes it costs some extra time, or you have to change the question or some way or another to help the client find that. That's my experience. I've done this, 30 times now. Sometimes it's easy, but sometimes it isn't easy at all. So your old skills as a coach and a counselor, you need them all to find that. So it looks simple, but that's the hard work really for the... Yes, you have a question?
Does it make a difference? You know how in NLP there is the results are very much based on the belief that they can lose a problem.
Yes, of course.
With depression, often people feel they can't. Does it have a difference?
Yes, it certainly is. But people don't know. When they come to you, they don't know. So sometimes they don't believe. So they think, what's happening now? It's really strange what you're asking me to do. And then you have to help them believe that it can help you. So that's part of the...
So you can get them first get them from that thing of the state of powerlessness. Believing, yeah. Sometimes that's necessary. Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, that's what exactly. So, sorry. Well, this I just did. Okay. Well, this is just an example to show you what happened with a client of mine. Try to visualize it. Before, there was a client of mine, before the dark zone was before him, a large dark area, and I used in my practice at that time just as the 10-point scale, just like that, to have a feeling for how heavily depressed are you. Are you depressed for a 10 or 2 on the scale, on the 10-point scale? And this person had a feeling of depression which was about a 6. And I asked him the questions on what is going on. The dark zone after the sunlight, when the sunlight shone upon it, it was like a mist that came up and the position of the dark area moved. And so the person could see the repressed issue, what was causing his or her feeling of depression. And what happened after that was the client could find a problem lying behind the dark zone that caused that feeling of depression. As a role model, which was lovely to hear, some people come with very unexpected things. It was a well-known Dutch actress who had a disabled child, and she could cope with that disabled child very well. And this person needed the resources of self-confidence and letting go. So the resources, self-confidence and letting go, were very strategic and very helpful for her to find a new coping strategy. So she could focus on things. When she used that, she could focus on things, the positive things she enjoyed, she could enjoy in life, and she, with a new behavior generator, copy-pasted that to her younger self and grew up with it. And after this whole thing happened, after the session, the dark zone was like a mist, and the position of the dark area had moved upwards, and the feeling of depression had diminished from a 6 to a 3. So that was quite a good result in just one session. And after 4 weeks we just had a check, and the feeling of depression was gone and the mist had disappeared. That's not always the outcome. In this case it was, but sometimes you have to do something else as well. So we always have to check for, is this enough for you, or is there something else what is bothering you? And another thing is, in this methodology we now use the new behavior generator because we want to standardize it because of the research project. But in my experience, I have sometimes it was necessary to do something else as well, because this was not enough to deal with the problem that the person needed. Even if it was a spirit, then for example, it could have been a family problem or from the youth, and you do something different. But that is the main issue was clear after doing the first phase of this methodology. Well, we have now a demo with Anna, and I hope I can get it going. You will.
Do the demo. Can I just ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Do you or have you combined this with spatially? So do you get people to look at different, to move to see around the area, and indeed to walk through afterwards to help with the...
They don't have to walk through, they just visualize it. They don't have to walk through, they just sit on a chair. And in my practice. Okay, you will see it on the demo with Lucas, and they'll be a bit more clear with you, I think, to see what happens then. And I'll see if I can get it going. Well, I don't know. Well, the point is it is here, but it's not there.
Christine,
Yes? Could you ask if the person comes to get it going for
just
me?
going back to that last question, is the reason why you want to just use the new behaviour generator
No.
for your research?
Yes, because we want to standardise it.
Yeah, so with a particular client, it might not be appropriate to use the new behaviour generator, it might be something else.
It could be, but in 9 or 10 of the cases it is enough. I want that one going, depression in. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, this is.
So we were just talking a little bit about depression, and you still remember having dealt with that. And so what I want to do is just to work with that, if you don't mind. And for that I ask you to re-access the sad feeling that belonged to that, so if that's possible. And it doesn't need to be very long, but just for a moment.
Yeah, got it.
You got it. Okay, then stay with that for a moment, and then point out to me where you sense zones of darkness.
It's in here,
Yeah.
pretty deep, near my spine.
Yeah.
There is a big ball of fuzz down here.
Yeah, and that's the feeling.
Yeah.
And so, and when you look around in the area around you, are there maybe areas that have some darkness in them, or like clouds? Doesn't need to be so clear.
It's pretty much everything above eye level is blocked.
So when I go to point at it, so where would it be? So
It starts a little bit further. Yeah, there it starts, and everything above that is just.
And would you say that it's dark, or is it just blocked? You don't doesn't need to be dark, but
It's kind of transparent dark, like a dark sky in the night.
Okay, good. Then look at that.
Yeah.
Then imagine that the sun comes up behind you. And so that's just an imagination, you know, in the morning the sun comes up and shines on this area. And at the same time, you try to move it in front of your eyes, so a little bit downward, and maybe you can compact it. See what happens when you intend to move it in front of, in the center of attention.
What happens is that the light comes down to there, and then there's still a small stripe of darkness that doesn't really go away, but the top is clear again.
That's a very quick effect, what you create there. So then look at what is left. Maybe have the sun shine on it a little bit more for some while. And then I have a question. So open yourself for what was it, probably, that you stopped believing in, or that you stopped doing, or were frustrated about, so that you gave up about in your life, that's behind this area of darkness. And so when there's nothing, it's also fine.
There's something of belief that I can learn things. There's something of a belief that I'm a valuable person, that there's development. It should be there, but it isn't.
And so this has to do with believing that there's no development and
it's not for me.
It's not for you. Good. Well, not so good, but good that you found it. And so this started at a certain point in your life.
Yeah.
So maybe you remember when, but you don't need to be precise to me. It's not about this memory. It's just about the question, what is it that you are not able to do there that you should be able to do? So what is the, let's say, the failing capacity that made you conclude that it's not for you? Or I will put it another way. Would it be possible for somebody in the world to deal with what you have to deal with there?
I'm not even sure. I think that in the same position, pretty much anyone would have concluded the same. Maybe, of course, there's other people who find ways to deal with it better or something like that.
Yeah, so let's think of that. Imagine that there would be a person, so maybe some life genius or so. Maybe you have an idea about maybe a virtual person or whatever, but a person who could deal with this and could create another idea, another belief about what's in it for them or what's possible for them. So you could say a person that could cope with the situation that you came through with this conclusion then. So do you have an idea what type of person that could do? So that could be the one that could be able to do that, maybe.
It would be a virtual person, not a real life
person. Yeah.
Not a real life person, but I can sketch.
You're artistic,
being.
and you can so create your image of that person. So let's say how would you call it in the virtual world?
Yeah, it's probably some kind of monk of some kind.
Some monk. Okay, then make this monk in your mind.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think this monk can that you couldn't?
Make everything more relative, more light. Connect the dots.
Yeah. So then watch him doing that. So maybe in another situation, so maybe he encountered something in his life where he also could use that. So imagine him, this monk.
It's really weird to see him in German class, but yeah.
In German class?
German class.
Yeah, well, it can happen.
Yeah.
And just study that for a while. So what I'd like you to do is to become an expert in this monk's capability to cope with this type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
So you could see maybe what's important to him, where he focuses on, how he feels when he's doing this, and maybe his beliefs that he uses, his philosophy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and now it's interesting, now you in a way know what the solution could have been to that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And of course at that time you didn't know. And so what I'd like you to do is to visualize yourself from before this happened to you. So do you know how long it was ago, how many years? Or?
I think the last time I felt like I didn't have a depression in retrospect is when I was 3 or something. So, yeah.
So
going
it
a
must
lot
be
back.
at 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. So then imagine to be in contact to your 3-year-old self, maybe put her on your knee, and then it's just a matter of teaching her this skill. And so you can show the example of the monk. And something that's maybe wise to do is just take the example of the monk yourself, so that you know that you as a sort of teacher are capable yourself, and then teach it.
Yeah, I think she gets it.
Yeah. So you can do a little bit overtraining, and so make sure that she really becomes good at that. And so you can look at the monk once more to see if there's anything that should be added to make sure that she's armed with the right coping skills. Yeah. Now when you're sure, you can just send her back in time and just watch her use this. And would it work?
To a certain extent, yes.
Yeah.
A lot, of course, the situations aren't fun now. It's still incredibly difficult, complex, and too big for one person, but yeah, she gets back on her feet really quickly now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you can do now is then just see the 3-year-old again and step into her and then be her and then try it out. And so go through your life from 3 up to the present and use this skill and just see what it brings. Sense what it brings.
Would have made totally different choices.
Mm-hmm. So you are back in the present. Well, I will not say that this is the definitive healing for a depression, but it could be. So it could have been, and it could have been done in this way. And so, since you live quite a, let's say, dynamic life, you told me, so you're being depressed is not so much in your way at the moment. But even though suppose that it would have bothered you some more, and then still it would be a big issue what to do when you get home and when your depression is gone. So how would you tell it to your friends and partners and parents? And
how would I tell what?
Tell that. So suppose that you would have a little bit more depression than you had, and then it's gone like just by doing this.
Yeah.
So could you deal with that?
That would be a big turnaround. Would be there's a weird realization that you indeed have the strength in you to change the way you think about yourself. And to find your own strength to, once you believe you can cope. Mm-hmm. And having a role model, imaginary or not, is a great help.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And in this case, the robes of the monk were bright yellow, just flapper through everything.
Yeah, and so what I meant, but you don't need to answer that, but that's just as a comment to, let's say, that depression is generally seen as a huge issue, not that many people have an answer, so it's not so easy. But this procedure that I did with you has been quite successful over the last couple of years. And the issue is, okay, when you can take it away that easy, so what to do next when it's gone? So you can jump for joy, but quite often it's been such a part of your life that dealing with that it's gone is maybe harder than the cure.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like it's like a lampshade over your head, and then you can finally see everything, and it's big and it's scary. Mm-hmm. So maybe the moments where formerly you would like be depressed, get into bed, just exchange that for something as simple as brewing yourself a cup of tea. Mm-hmm. Get another procedure to deal with whatever you're feeling and what it would have made you lie in bed previously.
Okay, yeah, and so for our last thing, so can you look at the area here now? Is there any difference?
It's a lot brighter. There's still a bit of band with two dense dark spots there and there, but the sky is a lot more open, and it's like I can, if I grab a ladder, I can climb into it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the feeling, so can you find it back? So just
it's like only the encasing is left, so it could be filled again, but I can choose whether I fill it with depression or with something else. So it's pretty much they're like an empty soup can or something.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now I have to get him off again. Yep. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this demonstration that Lucas did with Anna? Is something that you especially thought, wow, that's interesting? And do you think it can work? If you see this, it can work. And as Lucas said at the end, sometimes it's also difficult to deal with the problem that the depression has gone, because it's been with you for such a long time, and then all of a sudden it's not there anymore, and that's also very strange, not only for yourself but also for your family or the people who are around you. This can be an outcome. It is not always the case, but in our experience so far, we know that the depression has, in most cases, diminished and become seriously lighter, and sometimes really disappeared. And you see, it was a very capable client who was very well, very imaginative. So you could see, obviously, that she could imagine her depression, see it for her. So she was a very good client to work with for a demonstration. It's not always how it goes, but it would be lovely if it would, of course. And sometimes it really does, but sometimes you need more effort. So but as a demonstration, I think it's a very nice example. Yes?
Just on that point, because obviously certain people are visual, whereas some clients really aren't. So I know some clients where I've tried using other sort of visualizations and they just go, can't do that. Have you looked at any other ways of bringing this about without utilizing the visualization?
Well, in my experience, sometimes you just have to pop the question in a different way, or perhaps let them make a drawing or something like that. Visualization is something creative, what is in the mind, but if everyone can make a drawing. So if you can make a drawing, you can use all kinds of tools. You have to be a bit creative. That's what I said. Sometimes it's just not just popping the question like that. You need other ways, other doors to come in with the client to see, okay, what's then? And then you can work just the same way as we did now. Okay, when you see, you make a drawing. Okay, that's what it is. Well, then you can go back to the imagination, and then it's normally very easy for the people to do. Okay?
Just don't change the language and not do that. It's just to say,
exactly.
Can you get a sense of? That's what I changed it to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so exactly normal question. I just didn't know whether there was any deviation.
No, it's okay. It's exactly it. Exactly. You had a question too?
I was interested about the constraints really of the research that you're doing. So it's fantastic.
I'm going to come to that now.
In relation particularly to the demo, and you probably will answer it, but it was having the person just sat down, not using the semantic, moving around and all of that. So,
well, who of you has an own practice with just a room where you're sitting in? None of you? Well, I do. Well, normally the space is limited. So for me, to move around, of course you can move around, but for me it is very practical to work in this way, because you do not need to do lots of pacing and leading. You can if you want to. In some methodologies, in social panorama for instance, I do that as well. But here it works, yeah. So just be happy with that, I would say.
I just in my experience have found it even more powerful.
You can do everything you like after this, but this is just the first steps of what you in just one session. It's just one session, as you saw. Perhaps for her it was enough. Sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes it increases a bit when you go from 6 to 2, and then the next week when you see the client it's a 4 again, then you do something and perhaps you need some more capabilities. But people are very creative in finding their own tools. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just one.
Have you matched this across to anxiety at all?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Have you done this on anxiety at all? Use the same sort of technique with anxiety?
Well, we're concentrating now on depression, but trauma is one thing where we are looking at now to do this in a similar way. And anxiety, yeah, you can use for all kinds of mental illnesses. You can use this tool. I think, yeah, mental space is huge, and this is just the beginning. That we are just researching what the effect is now, working with depression because that was a major issue, and just following up my thesis. It was illogical to go further with that. So, okay, I'll tell you something about it then. I hope. What's happening now? It's always interesting what happens. And this, I need this one. Yeah, this is it. Okay. I did the pilot project in 2016, and there were a few criteria that were very important, because well, when you do a research project you have some criteria that you have to match. And the first thing I did was there were adult people. They were not allowed to have any medication. Their depression was not pathological. That means that they had pills for years and years and years, or but just in the scale of 10-point scale, there was a bit moderate, and they weren't allowed to know anything about NLP or spatial cognition or whatever, because. Or NLP or MSP, because that could have colored the outcome. We just want to have real clients, so that's what we did. And I had it was a tiny project. For me, it was a big deal, but it was a tiny project, just 5 real clients and 5 control groups. And I used in that stage, I used 2 questionnaires: the 10-point scale questionnaire and the 4DSQ, that is the 4-dimensional questionnaire with stress, anxiety, depression, and physiological effects. And I did that at the beginning, before they came to me, and afterwards, directly after the session, and then after 4 weeks. That was what the pilot project was about. I've wrote a paper on this, so if you are interested to take it with you afterwards, you can. It lies behind at the door. What was the outcome was as follows: all the clients could localize their depression within or around themselves by means of a metaphor. Some had a grey fog, another had a stone, a big stone, a stone that was lying in a river, or a black zone around the throat, or a cloud hanging above. So there were different metaphorical descriptions, but it was dark or heavy or black, but not bright. That was similar to all the people. And by shining the sunlight on it, upon the metaphors of depression, they became lighter or less heavy or transparent. And all 5 clients could see what was lying behind the dark zone. So that was very interesting. And there were various problems. For instance, the loneliness or problems in their youth, or lack of confidence, or anxiety. That was an anxiety problem issue with someone. And 4 of the 5 people could find a helpful coping strategy to tackle the problem. So they were capable of doing something else after the second phase of the session, to find a helpful, resourceful capabilities to help themselves. And after 4 weeks, and that was very promising, we thought, all clients experience relief or enlightenment of their depression. In some a little bit, but some really had a big result of that. That was very interesting to see. And this is what the graph looks like then. If you see the blue diagrams, that was the pre-measurement before I did the therapy. And the orange one is the measurement after the therapy, after 4 weeks. And the difference are the grey ones, and so you see the grey ones vary. Some had more than 3 points difference, other ones were just 1, but they were all had an improvement of their feeling of depression. So that was very nice to see. So that gave us hope. So that's why we are now we have started up a clinical research project, which is not very easy to do, but we wanted to do a real proper project, and we started up that with 30 trained therapists. We organized a training day to train therapists who work with counselors and coaches who work with people who are depressed with this methodology. They we made the protocol a little bit better, so that we made a few improvements on that. And the first therapist was trained in August 2000. Another 30 therapists were trained in August. So now we have a pool of 60 therapists who are doing this methodology. And at the moment I have about 60 envelopes, 60 results of clients back, but we haven't made them in scores yet. We haven't scored them yet. So we're now looking forward to do that. And the first conclusions are now being drawn. So that's what we are, at that point we are now. We do not have enough yet. We would like to have another 30 or 40 papers back, so that we have about 100 clients. That would be a nice scale to draw conclusions on. And but the hypothesis of the black matter is very promising, because everyone sees black matter when they're depressed, and you can work with that. It's something people literally say, okay, it's just like a cloud or a stone or something else. And what we have to tackle, that is the question of rapport. When you are a good counselor or a good coach, you make rapport with your clients. That's what we do. And also that could have a primer effect in it. So just going to someone who is willing to listen to you and say, okay, just tell I'm going to help you, can make a difference too. So to have the good results and to have clean results out of the methodology, testing the methodology, we have to take care of that and look at that too. And also, secondary, is that we are working with all therapists. They are all, it's not a group of people, they are all working on their own, they have a practice just like me, and they have all learned different skills, they have a different approach perhaps to the client, and the therapist skills differ. So also that is something to take care of when you are working with clients, to see what effect does that have on the methodology in itself. So this research project is not as easy as it looks like at first. But what we have seen is now, and now we are reading all those the results now, we are checking the results, that the psychotherapeutic application is very clear. I think we can use this really as a tool to see how we can get to people to cope with their feeling of depression, and do that in another way than just go to the doctor and get some pills. So this is really, I believe in it very strongly. So and yeah, we would, when we have finished the research project, which I think will be approximately somewhere at the end of 2020, that's what we think now. That would be lovely when we can prove it to the GPs, to the psychologists, to say, okay, we have a different manner to treat people who have are suffering from depression, and that will be really a breakthrough, I think, in therapy. And a breakthrough, I think, for NLP too. Because that's the second thing we would like to see, that NLP works, and it does, I know, but now other people have to know that too. Didn't work. So this was a bit of graph. It was how the research design project looked like. When you see the blue and above, there was the group. We had just N is 50 people who are treated, 50 people are a control group. What we did for ethical reasons is that we treat the control group too, but after the 4 weeks of waiting. So everyone gets a treatment. It's not that we say the control group doesn't get any treatment. They get treatment too, only they have to wait a bit longer. So there is still a month in between the first group and the second group, and then we score them as well. So we can still make a difference between what happened the first 4 weeks and afterwards. Yeah.
So with the control group, the first 30 days, what's happening to them?
Nothing. No.
Not even any traditional talking therapy?
No, nothing. No, they just wait.
They just wait.
Yeah, I know. They want to be helped, but they know they are doing a project. They are doing working with a research project. They know, so we have to inform them. Okay, well, we make an appointment. Hello, this is what it is. We score that, and you have now another questionnaire. We're using a different questionnaire now, the BDI, and then you have to wait. And after 4 weeks, you have another appointment, and then they go. That's what we do now. So everyone gets treatment. Well, if you're interested, I wrote a paper about my pilot project, and I have a few copies left at the desk behind, and which was also published in a magazine in the Journal of Experiential Psychotherapy, so which was good, of course. You have to start somewhere. In Romania, of all places, but well, it's a good beginning, and we would love to see when we are finished with this project, with the real research project, which is now running. We are going to write a big article and hope that will be published in a real proper, outstanding magazine for mental health issues. So that's what our aim is, so that we can spread the good gospel. So, does anyone have any questions about this? Is it clear? Wow, that's good. If you want to know something more about it, we have a Facebook page, and we have a website, and we have all interesting things that go on in the field of mental space psychology. So you can find a lot of things there. When the first results are come, they will be published too there, so you can find everything there. And you can join us, so if you want to become a member of our mental space psychology group, well, you're welcome to do so. You can Facebook group and the website, so a newsletter. So we have all.
So that Facebook one, an actual group, not just a page.
No, it's a group. Yeah. We have a group and a page actually, both. So yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. If you would like a handout, you can write your data on at the back. Yeah. So. Is it switched off yet? No, exactly. Yes.
So look, here's mental landscape. No, so we don't have to we're working with the client, whatever they present.
Oh, it is.
Because I was thinking, this will go to use so many activities because they're different types of